Hi, welcome to another episode of n8n at Scale. My name is Angel, and today, let's think about this. Your sales team is meeting hundreds of prospects each week. Each conversation is packed with valuable insights, competitor mentions, feature requests, objections. But at an enterprise scale, these insights get buried in thousands of calls. How do you find the signal in the noise? Sure, there are great tools like Gong that transcribe and record your calls. AI can summarize each conversation, but here's the issue. AI is only looking at individual calls. The real goldmine? Patterns across hundreds of calls. What's everyone asking for? What objections keep coming up? What's the market really telling you? What are the patterns across all these calls that your enterprise can use to make smart business decisions? Here at n8n, we run into the same problem. We meet with enterprise customers every week, we use Gong, we log insights into Salesforce, but we realized something was missing. There was no easy way to extract aggregated insights from all of these calls, and that's a massive problem. Imagine if your sales team could instantly see the most requested product features across all of their calls. If your marketing team knew exactly which competitors kept coming up. If your product team had a running list of the most requested integration requests without sifting through a mountain of notes. That's why we built CallForge. CallForge is an AI-powered automation workflow that extracts insights from Gong transcripts, not just from individual calls, but across all of your sales conversations. It then segments those insights for each team and automatically sends them where they belong. Salesforce for sales, Notion for product and marketing, or wherever your team works. Even better, those insights can be sent back into Salesforce, helping your team track trends over time and make data-driven decisions. All right, now that you know why CallForge exists, let's see how it works. I'm going to show you exactly how we use n8n to automate this entire process, from Gong transcripts to actionable insights across your entire company. Let's dive in.
When we talk about CallForge, what we're really talking about is a series of automation n8n workflows that work together to perform all these tasks. So there are currently 8 different workflows, as you can see in this list here, that work together to perform the duties of CallForge. Now, the reason for this is because what we want to do is we want to make this as modular and scalable as possible. So there's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes to prepare the transcript from Gong into a format that is usable within the AI LLM. Now, to that end, what we're going to be doing today is going through each of those workflows, some of them in more depth than others, with the end goal of better understanding how to deploy this in our own environment. Now, keep in mind that while we do this, I have created a demo environment. I have randomized the information to make it easier to consume, and for security reasons, of course. So I won't be able to show it end to end from beginning to end just because the calls contain information that is sensitive. So I don't want to show that on this call. However, I will be showing each workflow with data to show how it's supposed to be processed. So let's dive right in. So I like to start with what I call my Gong call trigger demo. So the Gong call trigger is how we get these phone calls to trigger this workflow to begin with. So this is done via Salesforce. So what we do is we run an hourly cron trigger here to check our Salesforce object. As we can see here, let's go ahead and open up our Salesforce node here. And what we've got here is a condition that looks for the past, here I've done 4 hours, but typically it runs at 2. So it looks in the past 2 hours worth of phone calls, and I have 2 levels of deduplication. So my goal here is just to make sure that even though it's running hourly, here we're pulling 2 hours worth of phone calls. Now, this is working with the Gong Salesforce integration. You don't have to do it this way. You can actually trigger directly through Gong itself and skip this whole trigger workflow completely. However, this allows us to do some filtering and make sure that the phone calls that go into the automation meet certain criteria in Salesforce before being processed. So here, again, the integration, once a phone call is completed, it synchronizes to Salesforce as a custom object within Salesforce. That object is then stored within Salesforce itself, and what we're doing here is we're looking for any of those objects that were created in the last 2 hours. Now, we then sort it by date, and we check to see if the opportunity stage meets our criteria, so it's equal to discovery or meeting booked. And then we check to see if the primary opportunity is not empty. So we want to make sure that there's an opportunity in Salesforce before we process it. So let's go ahead and run it up till here. And as you can see, the goal here is to format it into this object. So here we go. So this is a fake company, Zenith. Again, we're censoring this information or randomizing this information for the sake of security here. But the point is that if multiple objects come in here, they are then sent into our call preprocessor. Now, our call preprocessor, let's take a quick look at that. So here is our preprocessor. Here is where we start to bundle the Gong call information with information about our organization. So things like the integrations that we already currently have deployed within the product itself, our competitors that already exist. So what I don't want is to pull that information for every single phone call, because each one of those are pretty big and it can create a bottleneck. So what I want to do is generate it once in bulk, attach it to the JSON objects themselves, each of the phone calls, and pass those into the LLM organically one at a time, but only having to do one API call per hour of the integrations and competitor databases. As you can imagine, they can be pretty lengthy. Now, this is useful because in the transcripts, there's going to be typos. There's going to be mispronunciations. And what this allows us to do is we can prompt the LLM saying, hey, if you see something that's similar to the names of one of these integrations or similar to one of the names of these competitors, assume there's a typo and go with the information that we're providing here instead of the information that's being passed in. So this allows us to error correct on the fly by providing time data to the LLM and pass that information into it. That's what we're doing here. With these aggregates, what we're doing is we're bundling the information into one JSON object so that it has different sections within the JSON object that allow us to segregate the information within each call. So let's go ahead and run it. I'm going to run it up to here because I, again, don't want it to fully run. But what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and pull those integrations, getting all those competitors. We're going to check the Notion database to see if it already exists. If it already exists, we compare the data set and ignore it. We don't want it to continue down here because it already exists. We've already processed it. This allows me to run this in a modular fashion. So I don't have to worry about if there's an error, I can come back to this level of the workflow and run it from here, or the next level, I can run it from the next level, depending on where I want, and it will not duplicate data, which is my hope here. So once we get to this loop, what we're doing is we're passing it into our transcript processor. Now, at this point, this is what it looks like. So here's the call data. Here's the integration data. So as you can see, we've reduced it to a long string of integrations. And then we have our competitor data. So here we're going to be pulling this from Salesforce in the future. This is just a small list of competitors we were processing manually before. So let's take a look at the transcript processor. This one is a little bit more complex, but the goal here is to enrich the data and to take the conversation and set it up in a way that it has a breakdown of who the internal speaker is and the external speaker. This allows us to target our insights only at the external speaker. So things that a sales rep might say, for example, it can ignore because it can know that's contextual information, not so much that it is information that is specific that we're trying to glean from the customer. So the final output, so these two code nodes do the hard work. I'm using the HTTP request node because that was before we had the Gong transcript node, which we do have now, but this gets it in a format that we need. So if we pull it open here, and so again, this is not real information. The names and stuff have been changed for their protection here. But here, what we have is we have internal and we have our external and even unknown. Unknown is also, if somebody joins that isn't part of it, but we still use external and unknown as part of our prompt. So the goal here is to generate this long conversation string that allows us to get what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next step. So once it's been prepared, we go back up a step. We're going to then loop through all these calls and then go into our all data. So this is a no operation. No, it doesn't do anything per se. It's a way for me to aggregate everything before we pass it into the sub workflow where the work is actually done. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one. This is execute process for calls, or the call processor. So here, what we're doing, again, is we're doing a check to see if there's any duplication of data. If there's duplication, we need to get rid of it. Once we do that, we're going to go ahead and post a message on Slack saying, hey, I've started processing X number of calls. So once those calls are processed, or once that notification is sent, what we're going to do is edit this message in real time here to change the index of what it is. So it's like a progress bar. So it'll say call 1 of 20 process, call 2 of 20, call 3 of 20, until it's completely done, and it posts the final message, calls complete. The other thing we do is we need to create a parent object to store these in the database. So we have multiple databases that are being used to output the information. So we have a database for the calls themselves, summaries of those calls. We have one of use cases of customers using the product itself. We have one for integrations, one for competitors. So all these different databases, but they need to link back somewhere. So this right here creates a parent object. That parent object becomes the home for all those, or link for all those other database objects to link back to. So we need to do that before we pass it into the AI. So once the data is created, it has a home for it to go back to. So we merge the conversation data along with the Notion data here, so both of them can exist together. And then we pass these into the AI processor, which is why we're here today. So if we run it up to here, we'll go ahead and see it running in real time here. So there we go. It's creating it. It's created the Notion object. We'll take a look at that in a moment. And there we go. So AI, here's the AI team processor. So let's take a look at that. That is where the magic happens with the AI side. So in here, let's go ahead and run it up to, let's see here, let's go ahead and run this whole thing, if I'm not mistaken. We've turned off the connection because we don't have the Notion object already created here. So let's go ahead and just run it. Let's see if it works. We'll give it just a second. Okay, great, that worked good. And this passes it back into Salesforce. Now, perfect, it worked great. So now we do have one thing to cover here. Why are we using Azure instead of Ollama or ChatGPT, for example? So we're using Azure because here we're able to find a balance between security, and we're able to find a balance between running on-prem. So on-prem, we need to run our own hardware. We need to make sure that the agents are up to date, everything is running correctly. That can take time and effort. Whereas if we use it through OpenAI, rather, that creates problems of its own. We're not guaranteed anything in terms of data security, which could create problems if our information is leaked or stolen. So by using Azure, we find a good middle ground in terms of making sure that we're getting the information, but we're not leaking it somewhere else. So some of those reasons are security and network isolation. They use virtual networks, private endpoints, encryption, role-based access controls. They're SOC 2 compliant. They have HIPAA compliance, FedRAMP, ISO 27000 or ISO 27001, GDPR, things like that, data privacy. So it stays private and encrypted in Azure, in Microsoft's platform versus OpenAI's, which you don't have those same guarantees. And it also works with enterprise solutions. So definitely worth it. Let's take a quick look at the prompts themselves. So here, as you can see, we have, and I do have this pre-prompt here, but what I have here is we have the user prompt right here in a central location that is generated and passed to all three because it stays the same. Let's take a quick look at that first. So here, as you can see on the right, analyze the following call transcript between an n8n sales representative denoted as internal and external attendees denoted as external or unknown. Provide the following details in a structured JSON format. And this is key right here. Please note that a company n8n is sometimes incorrectly called n8n, 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 or Nathan in the transcript. So keep this in mind when reading the transcript. So this allows us to keep any types of future, for example, typos, in one place. So all I have to do is update this, and it automatically updates but all three of these user prompts, which is very handy, as you don't want to have to be constantly fixing that. The other thing is we give the company domain, the call title, internal and external names. Here, as you can see, due to potential errors in the transcript, here's a list of our competitors. Here's a list of our current integrations. And as you can see, that's a big one. And then the actual call itself. So as you can see, the call transcript, again, this is randomly generated transcript. It's not a real one, but it's formatted in the way that it is normally processed. The key here is that the output, once it's generated, is then sent into each of these, along with a system prompt that is specific to each department. So here, as you can see under system message, you're an AI assistant specializing in analyzing sales calls transcripts. Your task is to extract structured information about the call, including use cases, objections, summaries, and other relevant insights. So here, as you can see, you are an AI assistant specializing in analyzing sales call transcripts. Your task is to extract structured information about the call, including use cases, objections, and summaries, and other relevant insights for the sales and marketing teams. Pay close attention to action-oriented language and specific requests made by the external participants. You have no tools, do not attempt to use an AI tool. That's an issue specific to Azure. Sometimes since it has the word tool in here, it tends to look for a tool, but with this, it tends to fix it. So there we go. So identify use cases. So all of these sections tie in to this output parser. So if we take a look at the output parser, I've created a JSON output showing what I'm looking for. And what it does is it outputs that. So here we go. An organization is aiming to understand how to efficiently scale their workflows. External team expressed concern about pricing structures in relation to scaling usage. During the call, team from Zenith, various technical evaluations. So what we're doing is we're putting these in a structured output that we can then send into the next step, the data processor, to get it into our dashboards, into our database in a way that is consistent. That consistency allows us to create visualizations that help grow the organization, that can help create charts and graphs to help give smarter business insights. So what we're doing here is we're taking the prompts here, structuring the output. Here we're giving the information a format that makes sense, and then we're passing it into here to process it. So to give you an idea, let's take a look. So this is what this looks like. So as you can see, we already have, as part of the initial bundle of data, the Notion ID of the parent object that was created. So it's passed into here. Let's take a quick look at that. There we go. So here the data is passed into this workflow, and then it is passed into the other databases. Like, for example, we have an objection data processing section that handles the objection summaries, things like that. And it links back to the parent object to ensure that all of them work together. So it's similar across all three of those outputs. So all three of them are built the same way. And this is what it looks like. So let's go ahead and take a look. So here's the one we just created. Again, since it wasn't linked, we won't be able to see this one specifically, but here's some randomized data to give you an idea. So as you can see here, we can take a look by opening up the object and take a look at the call summary. We can take a look at customer pain points, next steps, objections, so we can quickly see what objections are being seen, marketing insights for our marketing department, actionable insights for our marketing department, company size, and recurring topics so that we can look for patterns, along with the Salesforce information so that we can look up this information if needed, or even, for example, the Gong call if we need to dive into that Gong recording as an organization. But the power in this is the graphing. So what we can do is take a look at things like call over time by sentiment and see if there were negative calls, neutral calls, or positive calls. All of these, of course, are positive. Additionally, we can do things like seeing who participated. So let's see here. Here we go. So call over time by AE. So we can see which sales reps are doing how many calls per week, per month, per whatever, and get a good idea of which sales team members are working harder than others or processing more data than others, which is nice to have. Additionally, we can see things like AI versus non-AI calls. So telling you, as you can see, AI is huge right now. So a lot of the calls are related to AI in some way. We can also see things like integrations database. So I can see which integrations we already have that are popular. So as you can see, Slack in the enterprise world is one of the more popular ones, followed by Salesforce, Postgre. These are ones that we've already integrated into our product. So we can start, as a marketing team, for example, start working on data or blog posts or content that are specific to these tools. And ones here, this can give us an idea of ones we don't have that we might want to focus on integrating in the future. So 11 Labs, 1Password, Discord. So this is randomized data. So this one at least is incorrect. But it gives you an idea of which ones we want to focus on for the future in a way that's visual and easy to process. Same with competitors. So if we look at the competitor chart, Make is our biggest competitor, followed by Zapier and Lang Flowwise, all of these additional competitors here. So again, giving us the ability to see this information. Now we're using Notion to store this information, but you can use any platform you'd like to store these databases. The point is that as long as team members are able to view it, turn it into actionable steps, that's where the key and the value lies here. Product feedback, our product team utilizes this quite a lot. So we have negative feedback sorted here. We have product sentiment, so positive versus negative. Positive feedback, they can look at it all here. So again, this is randomized data that was generated just for this demo, so it's not accurate in terms of what we actually see, but it gives you an idea of how it's formatted and how it can be used. And then marketing insights are very useful for us. And then recurring topics. So things like words or things that we're consistently seeing across this. And last but not least, actionable insights, things that we want to work on. The one that I actually wanted to show was use cases. So use cases allows us to get an idea, create like a gallery of what different companies are using our product for and generate it already in a way that is censored so that it can be used to help other customers get ideas of where they can grow, where they can make their own product better. So that's the workflows in a nutshell. So each of these work hand in hand. If you are trying to deploy this internally, you will need to deploy all of these first, make sure that they all work separately, and then connect them back together. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that you're able to deploy it. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section.
All right, let's take a step back and recap what we just walked through. We started with a simple but big message. How do you extract meaningful insights from thousands of sales calls? We explored how CallForge automates this process, using n8n to pull transcripts from Gong, process them with AI, and distribute these insights to your sales, marketing, and product teams, all without having to sift through endless notes. And we didn't just automate the obvious. We structured the AI prompts to extract actionable data, not just summaries. Additionally, I wanted to clarify one thing from the AI prompt section. You'll notice we had two inputs. We had a user and a system prompt. The system prompt defines the AI's role. What kind of assistant is it supposed to be? Here is where you also create the structure of your output. Here is where you're going to also want to give it examples of what your structured output should look like, while the user prompt tells it exactly what it should be looking for. The what. This distinction is crucial because it shapes how the AI interprets and prioritizes the data. Now, if you're wondering, how do I actually deploy this in my own stack? Good question. CallForge is designed to be modular and flexible, so you can integrate it with your existing tools. Want to bring in external secrets, manage different environments, or optimize the workflows in queue mode? Those are some of the enterprise capabilities we'll explore in future videos. So if you found this useful, make sure to like and subscribe, because in future videos, we're going to be diving into how to fine-tune your AI prompts, deploy workflows, and maximize your enterprise integrations. If you're ready to deploy CallForge yourself, check the links in the description below. You'll have everything you need to get started there. I can't wait to see what you build. Drop your questions in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.